I'm Justin Boyd.
I've just about had enough.
And I'm Bastion.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss episode 8 of X-Men 97. It's the beginning of the end. Yes, that's right. It's part 1 of the 3-part finale, episode titled Tolerance is Extinction Part 1. This is an episode that was packed full of cool cameos, lots of action. Hell, there was even a Fast and Furious moment, which we talked about last week as a joke. It kind of had everything, so let's get right into it. Brittany, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. Fast and Furious, y'all. Like, talking about theme of family, and then you had a freaking car, just blast out of a flying aircraft.
Yeah.
And then you have some banger lines that just like reinforce this whole theme of family. Like I already said, yeah, this episode was great. I mean, there's a lot of great action moments throughout this episode. Interesting story development about the bad here, Bastion, and I'm very interested to see what parts 2 and 3 will carry after watching this episode, because we said it. I think it was after episode 5, right? We call it our mid-season finale, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Bo DeMaio, the former executive producer of the show, had said that episodes 8 through 10 are the creme de la creme of this season. So I'm super excited to see, of course, what the remainder episodes show. But this episode was intense, like really, really intense. I really, really enjoyed it.
Frank, your thoughts on this episode?
First off, I have to say, Bo DeMaio is really a good sport. Because if I got fired from a job and y'all want commentary from me, I would be like, "Fuck y'all, motherfuckers." So for him to to be plugged in and still give commentary and about what he did over the first season, shout out to him, man. Um, I hate to sound like a broken record, man, but I think every episode has been perfect. Like I love every episode, from like the more high impact episodes to the slower paced episodes are setting up for future episodes. It's just been great, and like you can tell. So like an animated series, they had a limited budget because they didn't have the money, because at the time Marvel was struggling at the time, so they really have the money to like put budgeting into like high octane action scenes and all of that. In this series, in this season, all the action scenes have been on point, like robust. It feels like a MCU CGI level action packed sequences, and like you can tell the budgeting has been Disney's not is pulling all the stops to make sure that this show is getting whatever they need budget wise. And I read some stuff on Variety that they're spending like 3 times as much on the budget than they did 30 years ago, which I think is great. But it's just perfect. Like it's like again, like when you have so many characters on a team and you're able to uh evolve all the characters while simultaneously showcasing all these characters in a 32-minute time track of episode. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do, and for them to seamlessly do it week in and week out and have cameos of other characters, bravo, man, just bravo. Like I'm very pleased. I can't wait to see what the finale is going to look like. They're doing a great job of not only just infusing comic books from the past, but infusing different comic books of different storylines into one for the show, for the canon of the show, which I think is even harder to do. It's like you're adding Greek and Pig Latin and English and making it fusing all in one time. But for some reason, it's seamless. And again, man, it's just Feige can put another pin in his cap, man. This is another great show, and I'm very pleased. So shout out to the episode.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better myself. And before we get too far into this, I want to give a shout out to Marcy, one of our watchers who's not feeling well, but she's in the chat. So we appreciate it, Marcy. Hope you get feeling better very
Love you,
soon.
Mars. Get better.
But Frank, back to your point, like you said it very well. When the original series came out, Marvel was struggling business wise. Creatively, they were flourishing, but business wise, they were in the hole, right? And so, and I know I've mentioned this book a million times, but MCU, the rise of Marvel Studios, like or the reign of Marvel Studios, you should read this book.
Never heard of it.
Right. it details how important the original animated series was to Marvel, because this show was so important because it made the X-Men even more popular. It's the reason why they got movies made. They started making the movies. This guy Kevin Feige gets hooked up with the movies, and the rest of the story is playing out in front of us. So like this show was such a building block, and it's interesting how now that 30 years later it's come back around with this new series, this 97 series, where Marvel's kind of in a little bit of a lull, and this is kind of reinvigorating it. And you're right, like every week there's just like cameos from characters, and just they just keep telling this story that's it's really like so much better than the story they were telling 30 years ago. So it's really impressive, and it's like, well, we only have 2 more episodes left in this season, but fear not, I know that season 2 is coming sooner than we expect is what I've heard, and there's likely going to be a season 3. So we're going to get much more of X-Men 97. It's not over, but this season is close to being over. Let's start out with this episode. We get Cable. Cable returned in the last episode, and he explains to the X-Men that the Genosha massacre is an absolute point in time that cannot be changed, and that Bastion's going to use this to start a 300-year war that will lead to the enslavement of mutants and turn the world to a human utopia. And during this, I like how once again we get a Doctor Strange reference, because Beast he says that's strange. He says the mystics of Camertage speak of absolute points, and it's almost like the same stuff we saw in Multiverse of Madness, same stuff we saw in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse about these like canon moments. Um, Frank, do you think we're getting Doctor Strange? Think we're going to see him in this series? Because we've seen, we saw who was it a few weeks ago? What's the character's name that used his power? The ones with Storm.
Forge.
Forge had like the rings, and we've had a couple references to him. Are we going to get Doctor Strange? You think?
I don't think so, only because in the original series, Doctor Strange was nowhere to be found, and they found a way to keep it separate.
Cameo, one
Yeah,
like
one
flash, yeah,
yeah, just a short little 3-second cameo. I don't think
yeah.
we won't see him. I think if anything, you'll see more like time jumping characters like Bishop and Cable and like Apocalypse probably. Different characters like that. I don't think we get a Strange. If we do, great. But I know that they've mentioned Kamatage in the book that Forge's mother had and Forge had, but I doubt that we get Strange in this series.
Okay, yeah. I wondered because like we've had this is like the third or fourth reference to Doctor Strange. It seems like maybe he could help out. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if we get to see that character. But I agree. Like the thing about this show is like we're gonna get cameos from. I mean, I will just say Spider Man's in this episode, like, which I think that might be a bigger cameo than we think, because obviously in the original series, Spider Man, the animated Fox series of Spider Man, also had the X Men from this version on that show, so there's a crossover. So I think we're gonna see that Spider Man return and be a character, or we're going to see that Spider-Man get his own series, and that series be revived, much like X-Men 97. But you're right with the cameos. I mean, the X-Men are the main characters, right? It's about them. The cameos are just going to pop in and out. But it was cool to see Spider-Man. I mean, obviously Marvel's flagship character, the biggest character in all of comics, to make an appearance. I thought it was a nice little cool thing to see, and we'll talk more about that when we get to it. But Brittany, what did you think about? Or go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I want to mention in that so when Cable mentions this 300-year war
Mhm.
in the vision or the dream that you see a older lady using her powers,
Okay.
and I want to say that lady, that's Polaris, that's an older version of Polaris using her powers.
Okay.
So it's believed that Magneto died somewhere along in his future, and Polaris was the one that pretty much probably took over her father's dream of like protecting mutants and fighting against humans and Bastion. So that's who that old lady was in that dream.
Okay. Yeah, there were a couple characters that were shown, but I had no idea who they were. Like I no clue. So that's good that you good eye to catch those Easter egg characters. Brittany, what did you think about how the UN is revealing that Professor X is alive, and they're using it to go, hey, the X-Men lied to us. Their leader's back, and trying to like start like this anti-mutant riot. And
I
eventual
mean,
war.
it's just appropriate really to try to push forward their agenda and their propaganda of like, mutants are bad and you shouldn't believe everything that you hear. I mean, you think this one Professor Xavier was doing good by teaching these mutants and having his X-Men and look, he's over here joining an alien race to be their ruler. Like he's not here to do good. Like we've
Called
all
it.
been we've all been
Called it.
bamboozled. Yeah. So, that's obviously because Bastion is behind all of this and fear is the most effective tool when trying to mold people's minds, right? And hearing that whole this Genosha event was the start of Bastion's 300-year plan. It's very like Third Reich anyone? Like, you know what I mean? Because of one man who had a 1,000-year plan, so called, and all that he did to destroy one race. And it's mind blowing how history has that tendency of repeating itself, despite this being completely fictional, but it's very personal to a lot of mutants, i.e., Magneto, right? So that was really powerful, I think, to showcase not only how easily human minds can be molded to fit one person's narrative, and that person's narrative is also a mutant. So I think it's just kind of wild that this is his plan, right? Like you are a mutant, yes, like, and you have like this plan to enslave mutants, and I'm like, I was genuinely just very confused by all that. But it's like you become the thing that you hate, like, or you are the thing that you hate, I guess, is very interesting to me.
Which is interesting because in the comic books, he's not a mutant. He's just a cyborg. The show create this big difference of him making him a mutant, and which is weird because he doesn't have the X gene technically, and he's a hybrid of
Right.
two other
Okay, that's right.
Sentinels.
That's right. That's right.
But no, but you're right, Brittany. In the show, he is a mutant. They classify
Right.
him as a
Okay.
mutant in the show, which I find very interesting because I don't
Hmm.
know how, and maybe more may come out of it over the next two episodes of like what is the reason why they classify him as a mutant on the show.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like, he's a human, what, like a human machine hybrid, right? Kind of like, because we,
Well, according to Marcy here in the chat, he is a self-loathing albino mutant.
yeah,
Damn.
yeah. One thing for sure, his powers do not come from the sun. He's not like Superman, right? His powers, dude's not getting a lot of rays. Um,
Mm, no.
but in this episode, we do get his backstory because
Yeah.
Cyclops, Jean, and Cable, the Summers family, which is very unique family in that Jean has the memories of Nathan kicking in her belly, but she wasn't the actual mother of Nathan Summers, aka Cable. So you have that dynamic.
Yeah. All
Scott's
that's
getting to
wild.
be Scott's getting to be a dad, or trying to be a dad to this like future son, or the son who went to the future. Um, but we get the fact that like so Cyclops and Jean travel to Harmony, Pennsylvania, and visit Bastion's childhood home. And I love how there's like a little Easter egg as we're going through Bastion's childhood room. We see a Stark Expo program.
Yeah.
So
I saw that.
back to back episodes with Stark references. We had Stark Industries for the last episode, and we have Stark Expo. So like maybe we get Iron Man at some point. I mean, Iron Man was like briefly shown in the OG series, like
Yeah.
about the same time limit as Doctor Strange was. Like we're talking about like if you blink, you missed it, but he was in the OG series. Um, we learned that Bastion was conceived after his father was infected with the techno-organic virus, turning him into a human machine hybrid, and he is more evolved than the Sentinels, Master Mold, and Nimrod. And then we also learned that his mom is a Sentinel. Um, Frank, what did you think about these Prime Sentinels? Because we later see that half the world is a Prime Sentinel, I guess, and they're these humanoids who are these humans who have been infected with this virus, who I guess once they're around them.
Willingly? Willingly.
No, not willingly,
no, not
but
Okay.
willingly. So
Okay.
right.
pretty much what happened was Bastion used the frustrations of the everyday working man and working woman, because humans not losing jobs to mutants because mutants can do jobs 5 times faster. People who are just down on their luck, and he used like this message of like, hey, here's I can give you opportunities to be better, but he omitted like so much out of it. Like, hey, he omitted the fact that I'm going to turn you into a mind control cyborg, and like you have no memory of it. So he mentions that he can he can metamorph them into prime sentinels, and but when they can go back and they have no recollection of what happened when they turned to prime sentinels. Um, his if I have a tiff with this series so far, or this season, here's my only tiff.
Mhm.
Bastion has found a way to plague, I don't know, 30% of the population on planet Earth. And you mean to tell me not one telepath, not one mutant, not one hero has able to like catch this, or like see this coming? Like that's wild to me. This
Or just interact with one of them, because it seems like whenever they're near a mutant, they're activated, they become the sentinel thing, right? So,
exactly.
yeah.
So that did make sense to me, because
Mhm.
like if this prime sentinel everyday human being is even in close proximity of an mutant, which in this world there are a lot of mutants out there. There are a lot of them. So like, you mean to tell me
Yeah.
not one of them got activated, and then two, while Bastion is implementing this plan, not one hero on planet Earth, not Strange, not White Queen, Psylocke, any telepathic on the planet couldn't see this coming? That makes no sense to me.
To further your point about these prime sentinels not being activated when they're in close proximity to a mutant, Miss Tilly, the one who's kind of smitten on Beast.
Bruh.
She was in a room full in a household of mutants and
She
she
was on
wasn't activated?
Genosha.
Exactly. So it's like, what the hell?
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that with that character, because
Mhm.
later on in the episode, we see how Roberto and Jubilee are being chased by the Sentinels. They go to the DaCosta family gala or whatever, and suddenly the Sentinels are like, "Oh, we're not here to kill mutants. We're here to save them." And it's like, I guess, like, they're programmed to be like, whenever they're in front of humans, to pretend like they're helping mutants, but in reality, they're trying to kill them. Frank, we talked about this a little bit off air, but like, what'd you think about that part of the episode? 'Cause I thought that was kind of a weird part, also.
That's a major plot hole to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how mutants humans hate mutants for the most part. So why is Bastion so concerned about looking good in front of the human race, as far as like not trying to annihilate mutants in front of humans? I don't understand. Like, isn't that your whole message? Is to eliminate the mutant threat, and make it more than was the message tolerance is extinction, than to
Mhm.
tolerate mutants? That didn't make sense to me. So I don't know. There are a couple plot holes in this episode. I love the episode, but there are a couple plot holes when it comes to the Prime Sentinel thing with Bastion. And then Bastion's he's a time traveler. He knows the future because he came from the future. So if you're gonna do that storyline, do a better job of like him knowing what's gonna happen, him putting things in play. That
Mhm.
that part didn't make sense to me, as far as like the Prime Sentinel's not harming mutants in front of humans.
Another thing about Bastion, it's not quite to the level that we're talking about the Prime Sentinels, but when the X-Men mansion has been utterly destroyed,
Yeah.
right? I know we're jumping around here, y'all, but this is to my point about Bastion. He rolls up in a Royce, right? In like Phantom, right? And he gets out of the car, says something, witty, whatever, and he gets a virtual call from Sinister saying that what released Magneto, right?
Mhm.
And so Bastian was like, "Oh, I'm not surprised at all. Too little, too late, but nonetheless, he's got to go address it." He opens up a portal to go to where their lair is, and I'm like, "What was the point of the Royce? Like at all? Like
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand." again, nothing as quite as important as the Prime Sentinel stuff, but that was something that just kind of baffled me.
Yeah,
And here's nothing that's fucked up too. That so when he's talking to Val Cooper, he pretty much like tells her that he told the government that he was going to attack Genosha.
right.
Did y'all catch that? He
Yeah.
told, and
So
the government like okayed it. It's like, what the fuck?
well, the Val Cooper character is very perplexing to me because I know a lot of people online thought that she was just Mystique in disguise. I don't think she is. And I don't think Val Cooper is a character from the comics. It's just very weird how she's like, it's like, we got Bastion telling her, like he's revealing his evil plan to her. She works with the UN. She goes to talk to Magneto. Magneto is like tied to the X, which is a famous comic cover, but I think it's another character is tied to that cover, or on the cover. I think it's Wolverine or another character is tied to the X logo. Um, but she like apologizes to Magneto and says that she didn't know anything about Genosha, and then later on we learn that she actually is the one who sets Magneto free. So like that character is kind of all over the map, and I don't really understand like why does Bastion and Sinister, why do they allow her to live? Now I mean, Bastion and Sinister, they're not even on the same page either. So I'm just not clear, like, is the government's evil also, and Bastion's obviously the big
Yes.
bad. No, but I mean, like, it to me, it's not.
If
I'm
they
not.
sanction the genocide of Genosha,
No, I know, but
yes.
I'm just not putting the pieces together yet. That
Mm.
part of it, you know what I'm saying? So
I-
go ahead, Frank.
No, and I see your point, Justin, because like up to this point, up to the point where they made Genosha recognized by the rest of the globe.
Right.
Sen- President Kelly helped like push that after Magneto pleaded to the UN or to the congressional board about us being viewed as equals and all of that. They granted Genosha. Now if you're gonna tell me and Justin that Senator Kelly and the world as a setup to have all the mutants in one place and on Genosha to eradicate them easier, okay, cool. I see your point, but that's a shocking revelation to me because I didn't see that coming, and that's the point why you still helping mutants after the effect of Genosha because U.S. sent government aid to Genosha as well, not a lot, but they sent aid to help out Genosha. So is
It's
it
just
certain?
saving face. That's it. They're just
Okay,
saving face.
that's a good point. And this is how bad Bastion is. So when Bastion is talking to Barry Zemo and Doom, Doom pretty much calls him out for his war crimes. Like, bro,
Mhm.
I'm evil, motherfucker, but I ain't doing that shit. Like,
Right.
Okay.
Doom said that. So for
Yeah.
Doom to say that, that tells me that Bastion's a fucking madman.
Yeah. Hands down. For
Yeah,
fucking
Doctor
sure.
Doom, another great cameo, which we're kind of waiting on him to be in the MCU, and it sounds like he might be in the Fantastic Four movie. But the other cameo that you just mentioned, Frank, was Zemo, and I got to say, I didn't know that was Zemo because that's not the Zemo that I'm familiar with from the MCU. Um, what about this? Is this like Zemo, obviously under the mask? But is this like more like his comic portrayal? Because I don't believe he was in the OG series at all.
Yeah, Zemo was in the Iron Man series and the
Okay.
Hulk series. That's the final incarnation of Zemo right there. So like in the MCU, he hasn't gotten the mask yet. He hasn't turned into what we see in this version of Zemo. But that's the final incarnation of Zemo, like Thunderbolt Zemo. That's who he becomes.
Okay.
Nice.
And speaking of the OG series, I love the callback that we get from Jubilee because she goes to the mall with Roberto because she doesn't want to be around Roberto's mom, and she gets a new black outfit, and the Sentinels attack her, and she's like, "I'm totally done with malls," which is a callback to the first episode of the OG series where she's at the mall when the Sentinels attack. So I love I love how they call back to the old stuff. Um, but it's not like too confusing where people who haven't watched the OG series don't get it. Like it's just
Yeah.
very well done. I I like the callbacks. I think it's very MCU. The MCU is full of callbacks. We talked about it in game a couple weeks ago and about how all the callbacks that were paid off, and this show's doing the same thing. So really, really cool stuff.
There was a nice cameo. There was a nice Easter egg too. So when Jubilee and Roberto are at the Wasserman clothing store,
hmm
that's actually named after Ron Wasserman, who is the creator who created the sound the musical soundtrack to X-Men animated series. So
Oh, okay.
that's what it's named after, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
I knew that name had to be something because they wouldn't have made it so prominent if it were just like a random department store or whatever,
Yeah,
like a
man,
rip off JC Penney's or something.
yeah, the great Ron Wasserman, man. Yes, sir.
Well,
That is very
speaking of
cool.
the theme music, like throughout this season and in this episode especially, you get different versions of the theme song. It's not like they've really like I would say there's probably like 6 or 7 different versions, whether it's like a sad piano version or like an up tempo. Obviously, when they're in fighting, there's a lot of action in this episode. We really get to hear like different takes on that song, and I like them all. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I mean, because you do get different iterations of it throughout this episode. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's also very cool.
Yeah. So let's get to the X Mansion, where that's where the fighting is going down with the Prime Sentinels are attacking because they've been activated. As Brittany mentioned before, Trish Tilby, who is the reporter that Beast has taken a liking to, or he had taken a liking to, she turns into a Sentinel, and then Wolverine and Morph are fighting, trying to fight her off. Once again, Morph turns into another character, turns into Juggernaut this time. Cool to see Juggernaut once again. Like he does this, and I'm like, why is Juggernaut there? And I'm like, oh, it's because it's Morph. Like every time, like last week when it was Quicksilver, I'm like, oh, cool, Quicksilver's here. But then it's like it's not really Quicksilver, but he can mimic their powers. So
Yeah.
that was cool. We get Wolverine fighting the Prime Sentinels, and he's like like falling through the sky and fighting them. That was like one of the coolest scenes.
That was amazing.
Brittany, what are your thoughts on that action sequence?
All the action sequences were really well done, and I want to say either this last episode or the episode prior, the showrunners had pivoted to a different animation studio. I want to say it wasn't like the look is slightly different. I mean, it's still the X-Men, animation illustration side of it, but it has a slight different look to it. Either way, it looks amazing. I mean, Wolverine falling through the sky, but battling people left and right, cutting them into pieces left and right was amazing. But the part that really sold me was when we got to see Nightcrawler. When we got to see Nightcrawler with the swords, and Wolverine is in the room with all these Prime Sentinels, and trying to protect Rogue, who is still recovering from the last episode, and trying to keep them away from her. And basically, he I think he's asked the question, like, why fight it? He's like, I've got 6 reasons why, referring to his adamantium blades, whatever you call them, claws. And then enter Nightcrawler, and he's like, no, my friend, in German. He's like, you have 9, and he's got one sword in each hand, and then his tail has the last sword, and they're here to kick ass. Just like my friend Christian, who just joined us in the chat, Christian McDoris, he says badass. Night Killer. Instead of Nightcrawler, we're calling him Night Killer. That's great, Christian. I love it. Yes, it was amazing. I love that whole sequence. I mean, just to see that more acrobatic side of Nightcrawler, and just teleporting from here and there. And then you actually get to see Wolverine part of that teleportation, right? It's something that you don't typically get to see that often. So to see him kind of move with Nightcrawler to leave one area to go to another, that was really cool. I mean, that whole fighting sequence was just incredible.
Yeah, and also my favorite part of that is after the battle's over and they're on the roof, on the top of the X Mansion, and like they look up and the sky is filled with Sentinels, and you're like, I kind of got that sense of dread, like, oh, like, we heard that, like, episode 5 was just like a warm up for what was going to happen in the 3-part finale, and I was like, are we going to see more character deaths here? And of course, that doesn't happen, thankfully. But I thought it was pretty ominous how like they're fighting, they see all these ones coming on, and then of course we flash back to Sunspot and Jubilee, and they're being chased by them, and then we've got of course the Summers clan who they're in the Blackbird, the Prime Sentinels are all around them in the sky. I like how Jean like is taking on the motherly role, and she's like, "Come on, put on a seatbelt" to Cable, and
Stop bossing me around.
yeah,
God.
then we get the Fast and Furious moment, which we joked about last week. The Blackbird's taking on some damage, and so the three of them jump out of the flying jet in a blue Porsche. And then the theme music really kicks in at that moment. And then Scott's like, "Let's show these toasters why you don't screw with the Summers." So the Summers family fighting. And I mean, honestly, they're basically the Torettos of the X-Men universe.
Scott basically said, I don't have friends. I've got family.
There we go. Frank, what'd you think about the Cyclops family or the the Summers family going at it with the Sentinels?
I thought it was dope, man. I thought it was dope. I think Brittany mentioned the mothering that Jean had for Nathan. It's one of those things where you know Jean is shares all those memories with Madeline. So by proxy, she feels like she's a mother, and I like how this show's so fucking great. I love how the writing really shows that because Madeline's gone doesn't mean that Nathan is without a mother, because all those memories that she's harbored and trying to figure out what memories are hers and what memories of Madeline. One thing she does remember is the birth of this young man who's not this young kid who's now a man, and like I think it's like her taking over the mantle. Like, look, I know your mother's not here, but look, I could be your mother. I could be that that figure that you keep going back in the past to try to save. You're not forgotten. From a maternal instinct. I thought that was really beautiful. But to see the Summers in action, like and like them taking over the Sentinels and blasting the car out of the Blackbird and like the Blackbird line of like this is the third Blackbird in the last 3 months. Beast is gonna kill you. Like the comedic version with that, mixed with the action,
Mhm.
mixed with like the family bonding with Nathan and Cyclops, because in the beginning of the episode, Cyclops unveils that he's been trying to talk to Nathan, but he keeps walking away and not wanting to talk about it.
Mhm.
So to have them, bond, even though it's through like survival at this point, but still have them bond shows that there is progression in their relationship, and hopefully we'll see more of that to come moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And just when it seems like the Sentinels might overwhelm the X-Men, Magneto goes into action because, as we found out, Val Cooper released him. Magneto travels to the North Pole. He uses his abilities to emit a massive magnetic pulse, basically he shuts down electricity all around the world, disabling all the Prime Sentinels. And I love how Cooper has like Val Cooper has a little like a little quote where she's like, Magneto knows us better than Charles ever did. Magneto was right, which of course was one of the big themes earlier in the episode in the season of signs of protesters saying Magneto is right. And this is the part where we see like other characters are fighting the Sentinels too, and that's where we see Spider-Man swinging in. We see a metal samurai. Who is that, Frank?
Silver Samurai.
Silver Samurai, and we see
He was a
Omega Red.
yeah, Mega Red.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Silver Samurai was a Wolverine villain or arch enemy.
Okay.
He was in Wolverine Origins, that movie. The incarnation of Silver Samurai was in that movie.
Okay.
But yeah, that's who that is. He's a villain for the most part.
Yeah, and so is Omega Red. So like when they showed Spider-Man, I got it, but then they showed two villains. I was like, I mean, is it just going to be like heroes and villains team up to take out the Sentinels? Is that what we're going to get? Maybe I don't know. I mean, obviously no, because Magneto took him out by himself. But anyway,
Yeah, but
Magneto's
he still started something. I mean,
yeah.
he didn't utter a word at all until that final moment where he flat out just said enough. And that's kind of like that callback to that council when he appeared and those, oh god, what are those people, the one that took out Storm with her powers, when they showed up, blasted her, attempting to blast Magneto saves the humans, and he basically said like, y'all, we need to work together. Like, you need to be worried when I've said I've had enough. And that was the moment. He simply said enough. And that was something also Val Cooper had pleaded to him when he was still, in the whatever you call this, um, straddled. And she's like, curse me, forgive me, curse me, say anything to me. Like, I swear I didn't know. But when she was giving her speech after she's released him, Magneto, and she's giving her little speech to Bastian, everything that she was saying to me kind of felt like, oh my God, is this the reveal of Mystique? Because the fact that she was trying to plead to Magneto and trying to say, I didn't know about what was happening on Genosha. Say something to me, curse me, whatever. And then she ultimately said that Magneto was right. And we all know how Mystique feels towards Magneto. So it's just kind of like, oh my God, is this like leading up to a big reveal of Mystique, who's been impostoring Val Cooper? But to that right, how would Sinister and Bastian and the Sentinels, for that matter, not know that she was a mutant who's in disguise? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I there's that part of me that wants to believe that she really is Mystique, but then there's that part of me that, like, how could that reveal be so if there's these plot holes of the Sentinels and such not being able to pick up on such a thing?
Yeah, I want to mention something too. When Val talks to Sinister, he calls she calls him Magella. And for
Mangler.
those who don't, yeah, Mangala. And for those who don't know who Mangala is, Mangala was a Nazi scientist back in World War II, who was literally doing what Sinister's doing, but the human version, which was
Mm-hmm.
kidnapping Jews and doing these horrific experiments on 'em. And that's what
He was
Sinister's been.
known as the Angel of Death.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a bad look, y'all. It's a
That's a
really bad
real
look.
bad look. And for Sinister to just kind of eat that up and like, oh shit. I mean, take it as a badge of honor. That's creepy. But shout out to
Yeah,
Marvel
he
for putting that in there.
yeah, and also one more other thing, Frank, because we're talking about, like, real people. Um, Shout out to Sir Ian McKellen, y'all. Sir Ian McKellen, who plays real life Eric Lensher, real life Magneto, voiced the butler in this episode.
Oh wow, I
Did
didn't know
not
that.
know that. Did not know that.
Yes, he lent his voice as Sunspot's butler. Isn't that amazing? I think
That's
that's
crazy.
incredible.
I did not know that.
That's incredible.
I would have never known that. Man,
Yeah.
he only had a few words too, wasn't? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not enough to really, like, pick up on it that quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah, if it wasn't for watching it another time and then actually doing a little bit of research, I was like, oh, that's amazing. Also, while we're on voices, the original actor who played Gambit voices the now Cable,
Mhm.
but dude gives me total Josh Brolin vibes. Like, Josh Brolin as Cable,
I agree.
in
Yeah.
Deadpool, right? And I'm like, oh my God, did they do that on purpose?
I thought it was Josh Brolin for a second. I had to go back to the credits to make sure that it wasn't
Okay.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
And then
No,
you
he's
have to
definitely trying
remember,
to sound like him. Yeah.
yeah, and then you have to remember, okay, this is not Thanos. This is not Thanos.
No, but I mean, Cable sounds a little bit different than Thanos. Like
A little bit.
Brolin mixed it up a little bit.
He did, but
Yeah.
I'm like, if I didn't know any better, if I didn't know that bit of information, I would have
Mhm.
been like, oh wow, they got Josh Brolin to, like, be Cable. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
appropriate. But no.
No,
So
he's definitely trying to sound like Josh Brolin, which I appreciate that because that's
yeah, I do too.
a lot of people. That's how they know Cable is either through
Mhm.
this series or through obviously
Deadpool.
Deadpool 2. So, um, after Magneto, shuts down the Sentinels, Wolverine, drinking a beer, says Magneto actually did it. He declared war. Where's the professor when you need him? And then literally 2 seconds later, Xavier crashes to Earth. He summons the X-Men to his location and he says, hope I'm not too late. To me, my X-Men. And then you see in his like mind's eye, you see Beast, you see Cyclops, you see Jean, and you see Storm.
Ah, but it's not Jean. I don't think it's Jean because her hair was down. He's thinking of Jean, but it's Madeline Pryor
Oh,
because
really?
the OG Jean wears her hair up.
Wow, I didn't catch that either. Did you, Frank? Okay.
I did not. So
I know
do you
something
think
they didn't know.
do you
Do
think
da do
so
da.
he's calling for Madeline?
Well, but in what is his mind's version of Jean? You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, so we obviously don't know at what point Jean and Madeline like switched,
Gotcha. Okay.
but to Xavier,
That's
he's
Gene.
calling on quote Jean, but it really is real life Madeline Pryor, who sadly no longer exists. But I think it's kind of unusual that he didn't like try calling up Rogue, Jubilee. Obviously he I think he's aware that Gambit's dead. That's why he
Yeah.
didn't try summoning him.
Mhm.
But I think it's kind of unusual that he didn't try calling out to Rogue or Jubilee, who are X-Men, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Storm,
But
I completely understand, albeit that she's now donning her new black costume. It looks fabulous, and I agree with Christian what he said earlier that Storm needs to get her ass back into action. Listen, I'm ready for it. But yeah, I thought that was kind of weird that Charles only called up on like 4 of the
I think
X-Men.
I think because they're the most veteran, members, and also they're the leaders, right? Frank, you
Nah,
think that's kind of
That's how I took it as too. Like
yeah,
those are the main leaders of the X-Men. Um so that's how I took it as.
yeah. I mean, I thought that's an exciting ending because, like,
yeah,
I want to get y'all's thoughts on what do we think is going to happen next with, you know, with Xavier. When does Storm return? Is she going to be back in episode 9, or will she make a dramatic entrance in the finale? Brittany, I'll go to you first. What do you think? Like, will Xavier be able to rally the troops around him, or they're going to be like, "Hey, what are you doing back? And why did you let Magneto?" Like, I mean, are there some of them going to be on Magneto's side, or some going to be on Charles's side? Like, what do you see happening with that dynamic?
I would not be surprised if there's like a divide amongst the X-Men
Mhm.
who some may align their beliefs with Magneto at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Rogue was one of them who obviously has suffered so much and probably is going to continue to be out for revenge, albeit uh, Nightcrawler trying to kind of talk her down from it
Mhm.
in the previous episode. But I wouldn't be surprised entirely if there would be a divide. But even aside from that, the X-Men are going to want to have some answers from Charles. Like, why have you been absent for so long? Like, why were you going to plead your allegiance to an imperial empire and marry this person? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot to answer for, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did question him and then say, okay, well, we're going to fight with you, but we might still not trust you entirely. And yeah, I'm with Marcy here. My petty ass would be on Magneto's side. Listen, listen. Yeah, because that's ultimately what's going to happen. I mean, they're going to go to war against Magneto,
Mhm.
who, um, they still have a battle to fight against Bastion and company, but like they're going to go to war with Magneto. That's for damn sure. So
And I think Bastion's already done he's already done his job, right? He's already started the war. That's really all he wants is to start this 300-year war. I don't know
yeah,
that
but
they're gonna
I
necessarily be
think they'll still
fighting it. Yeah.
I think they'll still try to take him out to like
Yeah. Yeah.
do something. I mean, Cable being present obviously is going to have to carry more than just saying, okay, this is what's already happened in my future.
Mhm.
But, could that be altered to some degree? Are we going to get the return of a Gambit? People, I need to know. Frank, what are your thoughts on all the above?
I think the return of Charles will be a mixed feeling return. I think Cyclops is not gonna like it. I think Cyclops is gonna be very pissed because not only was Xavier gone all this time, he could have came back earlier, but two, I think Cyclops is still holding reservations on why he made Magneto the de facto leader in his will and not him.
Mhm.
I think that may come back around as well. Um, I can see Cyclops leaving the X-Men for a little bit once he finds out that Charles was out there gallivanting throughout the universe and the stars, and he wasn't here when they needed him the most. Um, I could see part of the X-Men siding with Magneto. I really could, because now this is not time for peace. This is a time for now for protecting our own. Like, not only you have to worry about the humans now you got to worry about Bastion trying to kick us off this war of eradicating the mutants altogether. So I could see them. I could see part of them siding with Magneto and starting with Cyclops and Rogue. So and possibly Wolverine too. Who knows? But I don't think the Charles Xavier return is going to be seamless. I think there's going to be some issues because
Yeah.
now you're not only combating with Bastion, you're combating with the human element of the media now, and now trying to combat that and try to let them know like, hey, as an X-Men, we didn't know this motherfucker was out there gallivanting around our universe. We don't know, but like I think that's going to really cause um, ripple effect at the X Mansion. So. But to answer your question, what I think is going to happen, I think there's going to be a divide. I think half of the X-Men are going to side with Magneto. I think the other half is going to side with Charles. And I think Cable said something to Scott and Jean. Um, he said every time he goes back to that point, like that point of trying to save Genosha,
Mhm.
he gets pulled back. And he said, a, a comrade of mine or a friend of mine or somebody from the future gave me these tools or gave me the evidence that I
A
needed.
rebel.
A rebel, and it has to be
Mhm.
Bishop. I think it's Bishop. I think Bishop is the person that in a way is helping Cable in the future. So I think Bishop may show up in this episode coming up tomorrow or Wednesday.
But didn't Jean ask Scott, or Scott talked to Jean about what had happened between Bishop and Cable? Like they didn't show up in the same time. They got separated.
They got separated in the time stream. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
they got separated in time stream when Bishop took them back, but I still think Bishop was able to find the adult version of Cable and leave either help him or leave clues to help him to get back to present day and give him the tools that he needs.
But not identify himself? I mean, because all Cable has said to reference the guy is a rebel from my future, blah 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 blah. Blah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Interesting.
Because I don't think Cable knows him because so
he was a
Bishop,
baby.
yes, so Bishop took the baby into the future. They were
Yeah.
separated. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think that's got to
Interesting.
be it.
Because like
Yeah.
he can say, "Hey, I'm Bishop," but Cable can be like, "What the fuck is a bishop?" Like he doesn't know who he is because he
Yeah.
was.
But
You know,
no, I mean he kind of would, because again, that question of what happened to them when they went to the future, and it's like they got separated. So he knows of Bishop. It's just he doesn't know the guy personally.
now I don't
Am
think
I
as
am I making sense?
yeah I don't think as an adult he does because like there's so many different timelines
Mm,
and they haven't
okay.
has it been an episode in OG series, Justin, with Bishop and Cable in the same room?
I was going to ask you the same thing because I don't really remember.
I don't think there
I don't
was.
think they were either. Because I mean, there was the Days of Future Past episode, and I think both characters were in those episodes because that was like a 4-part series or
Yeah,
4-part storyline or maybe 5-part. I can't remember exactly, but
Hmm.
I don't remember them interacting. You're right. It's like they
yeah,
were in different timelines.
yeah.
So yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And then
different different points in time, basically.
the Apocalypse 3-part series, they were both in it as well, but they weren't together.
Right.
Cable was trying to go back in time to stop Apocalypse, and Bishop was in the future already trying to s- fight Apocalypse in the future. So like,
Yeah.
I don't think they were ever in the same room on the same timeline together.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll allow
Outside,
it.
yeah, outside of Bishop holding him as a baby and taking him back to the future before they got lost. So,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
or
And that
it could be Forge. He said Rebel. It could be Forge as well. I don't. I mean,
could
because
be.
yeah, because Forge was in the future in a lot of those episodes too in the OG series. So
And Forge would technically be the one person who would be able to create things in his mind. He's just limited to the resources of the time period that he's in. So
and that picture of Forge and Bastion together, I'm sure Bastion used Forge to create all that stuff that he needed. So um, the future version of Forge
Ooh.
could be guilty of that because like, damn, I created all this stuff that Bastion needed in the past, but my future version, I can help Cable and give him the clues and go back in present day to stop Bastion from doing what he's doing. So yeah,
Dun dun dun. That's cool. I like that.
There's a lot of ways this could go. No doubt about that. Is there anything else about this episode that we didn't talk about that y'all want to mention?
Yeah, one other Fast and Furious reference that I failed to mention. It wasn't from the Clan Summers, but it was actually something that Nightcrawler was saying to Jean when Jean was, trying to heal Rogue to the best of her ability, and she's talking about how strange it is that she possesses Madeline's memories and whatnot, and it goes on to this whole thing where Nightcrawler basically says that family is not necessarily depicted by blood. Blood is blood. Family is a choice. And I was just like, all right, Dom Toretto, like Jesus, like why are you dropping bars like that on here? But I thought that was just kind of funny. And the very fact that we've previously discussed some Fast and Furious tendencies making its way into X-Men 97. So yeah, for Nightcrawler to share that, and of course his trauma or his difficult relationship with his mother, Mystique. He's like, and even though I am like her child, I was still too blue for her, which was really funny. Rewatching it today, I was at lunch watching it with Andrew, and he starts with "I'm blue, da ba dee da ba." I'm like, I think we're a little too early for that song, y'all. If you know, you know. Anyway, sorry. Sidebar.
Guess we probably would be because that song probably came out like in 2000 or something.
99.
Okay, well we're getting close. Obviously,
Yeah, we're getting close. Yeah.
Frank, is there anything we missed that you want to discuss?
No, I think we pretty much covered all the major plot points. I think I still think. Oh, I do want to mention this. So Sinister pretty much said, and just to give out Cooper, that I don't trust Bastion. So in the meantime, I'm gonna be doing my mutant test subjects, all this stuff. I still think Apocalypse is gonna show up, and if he does show up, I'm thinking that how he shows up, I'm thinking Sinister may call upon him. I think Bastion gets defeated in episode 10. I think Apocalypse is the new villain going to season 2.
It's a good prediction. You've had a pretty good batting average over the season, so don't be surprised if that's what happens. I know I won't be. So
Yeah, because they keep showing him in the intros, man. I'm like, that's not. I don't think they're just throwing him in there as in just. I think
very good point. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. That would make sense if he was the actual final boss because he kind of is. So interesting to see. We will continue to watch this series as the finale continues with episode 9. We'll talk about that next week. But before we get out of here this week, as Rhodey said in game, we're all about that superhero life, especially us here at the Watchers in the Basement. And today, the first superhero, we get to see the Superman, the new Superman, the first look at the new Superman. I want to get everybody's thoughts on it. James Gunn's Superman. That's David Corenswet. If you're watching us here on YouTube, in the Superman suit, he's got the Kingdom Come S symbol on his chest. And if you really zoom in, it looks like he's got the red trunks. Frank, what do you think about this this new Superman suit? This is the first time we've seen it.
It looks like a Bizarro suit. I
Okay.
don't. He looks undefined. Maybe he might need to get in the gym. He looks really regular. Like
Wow.
Henry Cavill filled that suit out.
Ooh,
Like he looked like
boy, did
Superman.
he. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I
My
think
intrusive thoughts won.
I get what you're saying. I think it doesn't. It's obviously it's not like a skin tight suit, but this dude's in pretty good shape. He's like I've seen his like workout stuff, and he's not as big as Henry Cavill, but like
Mhm.
he looks like he could play Superman. Brittany, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Yeah, I have to agree with Frank. I don't know this actor from Adam.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is the very first time I've ever seen him. Period. Let alone heard his name. It's not a secret here on the Watchers that I'm not DC's biggest fan, albeit the exception of maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 movies from them. However, with Superman, this is so blasphemous for me to say, given that my dad absolutely loves the Christopher Reeves Superman.
Mhm.
I'm just not the biggest Superman fan. I never have been, never will be. It's nothing against him personally. I don't care for it. So the suit, yeah, it looks a little loose on him. And when y'all said that there's some big shoes to fill, because of Henry Cavill, listen, there's big shoes, there's big pants, there's big, t-shirts. Yeah, I'm gonna always compare everybody who comes after him as Superman to his Superman. Like there's just no way of getting around it. So sorry, but not sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that, but the thing is, like, Henry Cavill's Superman was like he never really played Superman, really. Like, it was like a Elseworlds kind of version.
Mm.
And Marcy kind of nails it on the head. If you look at the photo again, he does look like it's a Superman who's been in battle, who's like already weary, and
He's like me going to work.
yeah, he's putting on his boots one boot at a time, and in the background, you can see something's happening in Metropolis. Looks like maybe Brainiac is attacking or something, which we've never seen Brainiac in live action. So that would be cool if Brainiac is one of the villains. I mean, we know there is Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor will be played by Nicholas Holt, and Rachel Brosnahan will play Lois Lane. So they do have some bigger names. David Cornsweet, this is kind of his big break. He's 30 years old, so he's like 11 years younger than Henry Cavill. He's only been in a few things. He's been in a few Netflix shows. He was in the movie Pearl. It's like a horror movie, and he's done a couple of Netflix shows, like I mentioned before, The Politician and a show called Hollywood. Um, Marcy said he was also in We Own This City on Max, which I have not watched that. So, but the thing about the suit, like I wasn't blown away by the suit. I mean, the internet's been waiting to see the suit for for as long as we knew there was going to be a new Superman. I just, to me, the fact that he already looks weary is kind of that. I thought that's like the opposite of what James Gunn wanted to do, because James Gunn wanted to give us like an actual Superman story, whereas we didn't really get that with the Henry Cavill version. That was not Henry Cavill's fault. That was obviously Zack Snyder, DC. The direction they were going was not the way to go for Superman. So I'm just curious, like, why they chose this image and not like a more bright, like full on shot of the suit and the cape and everything.
Maybe
Um,
they're trying to go for like a more defeated,
well, I
like
mean, but that's kind of what happened in the last Superman. Like
well,
he was kind of a sad sack Superman for a lot of the movies. So Um, I don't know. I'm just curious to see what happens, but I believe in James Gunn. Like literally a year ago, his last movie came out, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think we all really enjoyed that film. And I'm not betting against James Gunn because, as far as I'm concerned, with the superhero stuff, he's batting 1,000 with the three Guardians movies, with Peacemaker, with the Suicide Squad, even with Brightburn, which he was attached to. He's very good in the superhero space. So I'm still looking forward to the movie, but I wasn't like blown away by the suit, and it'll be interesting to see like what's the next thing where they reveal. And the movie doesn't come out until next July 11th, 2025. So we will definitely be talking about that movie once the trailer drops and it gets closer. But it was the first reveal. I thought we need to talk about it. Just a little brief thing to wrap up the episode. Brittany, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I think we've pretty much covered it all, truthfully. Marcy says here in the chat, they're trying to match the vibe of the country. LOL. We're all tired. Preach. Listen, preach. Yeah, I think that's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
miss you being here on the pod. Marcy, hope you feel better once again. Definitely need your input come the next 2 episodes of X-Men 97. But yeah, I think with the way part 1 has played out for this season, I think it's teeing up to something really truly incredible. And I think if we've learned really anything from a lot of different productions, is that penultimates usually do not let down or let us down,
Mhm.
usually. So I'm kind of hoping that this will be the same case for X-Men 97. I've already said it many, many times. I try not to walk into these things with expectations anymore because I don't want to be sorely disappointed. However, I do feel that penultimates usually like don't betray us horribly. So yeah, let's get it.
Yeah, they usually deliver. Frank, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Just keep wowing me, man, and just keep having me walk through my childhood of nostalgia and joy. And I'm not hard to please, bro. Just make it make sense. Give me some action. Give me some cameos, and I'm happy. I've been very pleased so far, and I wish it was 20 episodes this season. I had to settle for 10, but it's okay. Getting season 2, so
Yeah,
I'm really ecstatic. Just keep on doing what you're doing.
and we might get season 2 before the end of the year. I don't know. We'll see. There's kind of some rumblings about how it might be sooner than we expect, so we shall see. Also,
That would
next
be
month we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. Next month
My God, do we?
we've got House of the Dragons back. 2 days before that, The Boys drops 3 episodes for season 4. So we're going to be.
Woo!
It's actually good that X-Men's ending in May because our June is going to be jam packed with 2 of our favorite shows of all time. So
And for May, Frank, Amber, hopefully Marcy's caught up with Interview with the Vampire season 1. We're going to be back talking about season 2 of Interview with the Vampire. Look at
let's
Frank. Look
fucking
how
go.
excited he is.
Let's fucking go.
So any Anne Rice fans out there, y'all, please turn on that notification bell, subscribe to this YouTube channel for the Watchers in the Basement because we're going to be covering that next as we begin to conclude our X-Men 97 pod reviews.
yes. So Brittany, now that everyone knows what we think about X-Men 97, we want to know what you think about it and how can they let us know?
Hey, just by doing what Marcy and Christian have done today, and that's join us in our live chats. We really do enjoy that, mostly because the fact that we get to interact with our audience and get to hear different perspectives, answer your questions live as we're doing this live stream, which is a lot of fun. And so we want to thank Marcy and Christian for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And to those who are watching the replay, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to check us out. Please leave a comment down below on what you thought of this episode. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We finally hit 300 subscribers, y'all. I'm so excited. Yay for us. But let's keep it going. So keep spreading the word about the Watchers in the Basement. And you can do so by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and Threads. That's all at Watchers Basement. You can also use that same hashtag to help grow our audience. Send us memes, send us things that you want us to talk about, and any articles, that kind of thing. We're here for it. And lastly, we also have audio podcasts available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to follow us there and give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. So for Brittany and for Frank, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Andy Rice rules.
Ding,